ሰላም ጤና ይስጥልኝ በያላችሁበት እንደምናላችሁ ማናየ ነኝ። በዚህ ቪዲዮ ውስጥ ስድስተኛውን የኢንተርፕረነርሺፕ ቻፕተር ነው ይዤላችሁ የመጣሁት ቢዝነስ ፋይናንሲንግ። ከዚህ ቀደም የተለያዩ ቻፕተሮች ላይ የተለያዩ ነጥቦችን እያነሳን ስነጋገር ነበር። ቻፕተር 1 ላይ ኔቸር ኦፍ ኢንተርፕረነርሺፕ፣ ቻፕተር 2 ላይ ቢዝነስ ፕላኒንግ፣ ቻፕተር 3 ላይ ቢዝነስ ፎርሜሽን፣ ቻፕተር 4 ላይ ስለ product and service development, chapter 5 ላይ ስለ ማርኬቲንግ። ዛሬ ደግሞ በዚህ ቻፕተር ውስጥ ስለ ቢዝነስ ፋይናንሲንግ እንነጋገራለን። ቢዝነስ ፋይናንሲንግ ምንድነው? ቢዝነስ ፋይናንሲንግ is just like a fuel for a car. ይሄ ስራው እንዲጀመር፣ እንዲንቀሳቀስ፣ እንዲስፋፋ ሊያደርጉ የሚችሉ ግባቶችን የማሟያ መንገድ ነውና it's just like funding። ምን እንነጋገራለን እዚህ ውስጥ ቢዝነስ ፋይናንሲንግ ውስጥ ምን አለ ካላችሁኝ፣ ፋይናንሻል ሪኳየርመንትስ ምንድናቸው፣ ሶርስ ኦፍ ፋይናንሲንግ፣ ኢንተርናል ሶርስስ፣ ኤክስተርናል ሶርስ አሉ፣ ኢኩዊቲ ኤንድ ዴብት፣ ሊዝ ፋይናንሲንግ፣ ታይፕስ ኦፍ ሊዝ እንነጋገራለን፣ ትራዲሽናል ፋይናንሲንግ ኢን ኢትዮጵያ፣ crowdfunding, how is crowdfunding different, benefits of crowdfunding, types of crowdfunding, na microfinances, the what, the importance and microfinance በኢትዮጵያ ውስጥ ምን ይመስላል የሚለውን እንነጋገራለን። እዚህ ጋር እንደምትመለከቱት sourcing money can be done for a variety of reasons. Sourcing money, traditional areas of need may be for capital asset acquisition, new machinery or the construction of new building, design approach. The development of new products can be costly, but capital may be required. Costly ሆናል ነገር ግን capital ደግሞ ያስፈልጋል አብሮ። Such developments are financed internally, whereas capital for acquisition of machinery may come from external sources. Now in these days an age of light liquidity, የሊኩዊዲቲ መጠን ወይም ደግሞ ተበድሮ የመመለስ አይደለም። Many organizations have to look for short-term capital in the way of loans, working capital, and this is in order to provide a cash flow cushion. እነኚህ ነገሮች አሉ። በዚህ ቻፕተር ውስጥ የተለያዩ ነጥቦችን አንስተን የምንነጋገር ይሆናል። ፋይናንሻል ሪኳየርመንት ላይ ስንመጣ all businesses need money to finance a host of different requirements. ይሄን ቅድም ብያቸዋለሁ። ልክ እንደ ነዳጅ ነው። መኪና ለመሄድ የግድ ነዳጅ መሙላት አለብን። ፋይናንስ እንደዛ ነው። So in looking at the types and adequacy of funds available, it's important to match the use of funds with appropriate funding method. ምን appropriate funding method አለ? So in this section, let's look at the three key requirements of business financing. Permanent capital አለ፣ working capital አለ፣ asset financing አለ። asset finance permanent capital በአብዛኛው የመጀመሪያ መነሻ እንትኖችን የሚመለከት ነው። ፕላንት ወይም ቢዝነስ እንጀምር so is used to finance the startup costs of any enterprise. ሲጀመር ወጪ አለ አይደል? ያንኑ ስራ ሲጀመር ወጪ አለ። So a major development and expansion in its life cycle may be required for a significant innovation, አዳዲስ ነገሮችን ለመፍጠር such as new product development. So permanent capital usually comes from equity investment in a private limited company, ለምሳሌ ስራውን የሚያቋቁሙት ሰዎች, or share company, or personal loans to form partners. ብድር የግለሰብ ብድር ነው እዛ ውስጥ ፓርትነር ፎርም ማድረግ or to invest in sole proprietorship. እነዚህ የቢዝነስ ፎርሞች ባለፈው የተነጋገርናቸው ትዝ ይላችኋል አይደል? forms of business. Equity from private investors may also be sought to take a small firm into medium ማለት ከፍ ማለት enlargement or large category, or as an exit route for the original investors. So ideally, permanent capital is only served when the firm can afford it. ምን ማድረግ ምሳሌ ተራ የሆነችን እንትን በጣም ብዙ ብር እዛ ላይ ብናደርግ ካላደገ ባለበት it's nonsense. አፎርድ ማድረግ አለበት። to invest መቻል ነው አፎርድ። Investment in equity is rewarded by dividends from profit. ምላሽ ነው ይሄ ኢንቨስትመንት ሪተርን አለው ዲቪደንድስ ትርፍ or a capital gain when shares are sold ደግሞ አክሲዮን ልንሸጥ እንችላለን በዛ መንገድ we can get permanent capital is not therefore a continual drain from the cash flow of a company such as loan when needs interest and capital repayments on a regular basis. That's not the case. Equity capital usually provides a stake in the ownership of a business. ድርሻ አክሲዮን ገዛ በዚህ አብረን እንስራ ሐሳቡ አለ ገንዘቡን ሐሳቡን ይዞ የመጣው ሰው አለ ገንዘቡን ይዞ የሚመጣው ሰው ያ እንደ permanent capital አንድ አካል ይሆናል ማለት ነው therefore the investor accepts some element of risk ውስጥ the returns are not automatic but only made when the small firm has generated surpluses ትርፍ abundant return እሺ ያለን ያለ ነው permanent capital working capital and asset financial asset. So in working capital firms need working capital to bridge the gap between when they get paid when they have to pay their suppliers. ይሄውን አቅራቢዎች አሉ አይደል ለምሳሌ በትንሹ እንኳን ምግብ ለምግብ ቤቶች እንቁላሎች እንጀራው ሰርተው የሚያቀርቧሉ and then ለነኛ they must just pay እንደዚህ አይነት አሁን ስራው ላይ ያለ and their overhead cost የስራ እየተሰራ ያለ የሚከፈል ክፍያን የሚመለከት ካፒታል ነው working capital. So it's short term finance ነው ምንድነው ለዚህ ነው short term finance ከሶስቱ የቱ ነው ከተባላችሁ working capital ነው requirements for this kind of short term finance will vary considerably by business type እንደየ ቢዝነሱ አይነት ሊለያይ ይችላል ይሄ ግልጽ ነው for example a manufacturer or a small firm selling to other businesses will have to offer credit terms the credit term payable and the resulting debtors will need to be financed. So the faster the growth በጣም ፈጣን የሆነ እድገት ካለ the more the debtors promising ነው ብዙ አበዳሪ ይኖራል and the larger the financial requirement እርግጥ እያደገ ሲመጣ የፋይናንስ ፍላጎቱም ከፍ ይላል አይደለ ቢዝነሱ የሚሰራው የሚያከናውናቸው ነገሮች እያደጉ ሲመጡ እሱን ያዙልኝ እንግዲህ working capital short term finance ነው እስቲ true false ላይ ለምሳሌ ፈተና working capital is long term finance ብትባሉ that's false it is short term finance. A retailer, a restaurant or other selling directly to the public will often collect cash with the sale however earnings in the cash flow will be advantageous. So in some cases በአንዳንድ ሁኔታዎች ውስጥ ይሄ የworking capital እንደመነሻ ሆኖ ሊያገለግል ይችላል this may be sufficient to finance the startup of small firms so that suppliers are effectively financing the business. However, even these types of business may need working capital to fund temporary losses, caused by seasonal fluctuations, ወቅቱ የሚያመጣቸው መለዋወጦችን or cope with prepayment of expenses such as rent payable in advance. Those are important points. Although short-term finance is normally used to fund the trading of a business, it's also sometimes needed to purchase assets. ምክንያቱም እነኛን ለግብይቱ ብቻ ሳይሆን አሴት ለመግዛትም ሊያገለግል የሚችልባቸው ሁኔታዎች አሉ ማለት ነው። These assets are short-lived such as company vehicles አላቂ ናቸው which may be changed every 4 or 5 years በአራት በአምስት ዓመት ሊቀየር የሚችል አሴት ፋይናንስ ቀደም እናየን ከሶስት ውስጥ permanent capital working capital ሶስተኛው ደግሞ asset finance purchase of tangible assets ተጨባጭ የሚታዩ is usually financed by long term basis ቀደም working capital ምንድነው ያለው ምን ተርም ነው short term አይደል long term basis from 3 to 10 years or more depending on the useful life of the asset it's a medium to long term finance ከቅድሙ በተቃራኒ ነኝ እንግዲህ ቋሚ የሆኑ ለምሳሌ ፕላንት ሲባል ዛፍ ማለት አይደለም ፕላንት ይሄ ማሽነሪ ለምሳሌ ብንተክል ቤት የምንሰራበት ወይም ቤቱ ራሱ ህንጻ machinery equipment fixtures and fittings company vehicles ትልቅ building may be financed by medium or long term loans እነዚህ asset finance ይባላሉ asset such loans may be from a variety of lending bodies ከተለያዩ አበዳሪ አካላት ሊሆን ይችላል እነዚህ ቢገኙ ኦኬ ኢንትሮዳክሽን አየን እና ደግሞ ዋና ፋይናንሻል ሪኳየርመንት አየን ፋይናንሻል ሪኳየርመንት የሚሟላባቸውን ሶስቱ መንገዶች permanent capital working capital and asset finance permanent capital working capital and asset financing ሶስተኛው ርዕሳችን source of finance ነው financial resources are essential for business but particular requirements change as an enterprise grows ባደገ ቁጥር ይቀየራል often those resources in the amount needed and at the time needed can be difficult for entrepreneurial venture because they are generally considered as more risky than established than the established ones ስለዚህ እዚህ ጋር we need to be very careful የትኛው አይነት እንትን ነው እናመጣው ወይም ደግሞ በምን ያህል መጠን በምን ያህል ጊዜ የሚለውን ሪስኪ የሆኑ እንትኖች considered more risky than establishing enterprise okay financing means more than merely obtaining money ገንዘብ ከማግኘት በላይ ነው ስራ ማስኬጃ ገንዘብ ከማግኘት በላይ ነው it's very vital process of managing assets wisely በብልሃት በዘዴ to use capital efficiently what lemon for just making the business to be run the critical issue in financing is to assure sufficient cash flow የካሽ ፍሎውን ሁኔታ አሹር ማድረግ for operation ለተግባራት as well as the plan financing that coincides with change in the enterprise businesses obtain cash through two general sources ጻፎስኪ businesses obtain cash through two general sources በሉና equity and equity and debt and both can be obtained literally hundreds of different sources the various sources of finance may be broadly classified as internal እንደዚህ በሉ source of finance በሉና ማስታወሻችሁ ላይ source of finance በሉና ከስር internal external እያላችሁ ጻፉ internal ከዛ ኢንተርናል ካላችሁ በኋላ ኤክስተርናል ሁለተኛ እያረጋችሁ ለየብቻው አውጣችሁ እሺ ተታነቡ እንደዛ ያዟችሁ ለምሳሌ ፈተና ሲሆን ሾርት አንሰር አይነት አጠያየቆች የሚጠየቁት እንደዚህ አይነት ነጥቦችን So owner's capital or equity represent the personal investment of the owners. ለምሳሌ ስራ ብጀምር የራሴን ብር ነው የምጠቀመው. That's internal source. And it's sometimes called risk capital. Risk capital ይባላል. Equity capital ይባላል. Risk capital ይባላል. Internal source ይባላል. But these investors assume the primary risk of losing their funds if the business fails. የሚጀምረው ቢዝነስ ፌል ካረገ ገንዘቡን ላጣው እንደሚችል አምናለሁ ማለት ነው። አሲዩም አደርጋለሁ። However, if the venture succeeds ከተሳካ ደግሞ they also share the benefit. ስለዚህ ይሄ ኢንተርናል ሶርስ ኢኩዊቲ ካፒታል ኔቸር ነው። ሶርስ ኦፍ ኢኩዊቲ ካፒታል አንደኛ ፐርሰናል ሴቪንግ ራስ ቆጥበን የምናገኘው የራሳችን. The first place entrepreneurs should take from startup money የስራ ማስጀመሪያ in their own pockets. As a general rule, entrepreneurs should provide at least half of the startup funds ግማሹን ቢያንስ in the forms of equity capital. ሌላኛው ዘመድ ጓደኛ ነው። ጓደኞች ወይም ዘመድ after emptying their own pockets የራስን ነገር ከጨረስክ በኋላ or exhaust ካደረግን entrepreneurs should turn to friends and relatives who might be willing to invest in the business. We may just invite them. Entrepreneur is expected to describe opportunities and threats of the business. ያንን ማብራራት አለብን. partners እንትን ልንል እንችላለን. can choose to take a partner to expand the capital formation. partner እናስገባ እንችላለን. ፓርትነርሺፕ ታስታውሳላችሁ ቢዝነስ ፎርሜሽን ላይ አይደለም ባለፈው ሶስቱ ቅድም እንደተጠቀስኩላችሁ. ፐብሊክ ስቶክ ሴል ወይ ፐብሊክ አሁን ወደ ማህበረሰቡ ተወጡና you may just sell a stock. In some case, entrepreneurs can go public by selling share of stock in their corporation to outsiders. እየተከተላችሁ ነው። ኢኩዊቲ ካፒታል፣ ፐርሰናል ሴቪንግ ቆጥበን የራሳችን ከጓደኛና ዘመድ አጋር ወይም ፓርትነር መፍጠር የቢዝነስ አጋር፣ ማህበረሰቡ ላይ ደግሞ ስቶክ መሸጥ. This is an effective method of raising large amounts of capital. huge ሲሆን ፐብሊክ ስቶክ የተሻለ ይሆናል. Angels, these are private investors who are wealthy individuals, often entrepreneurs who invest in the startup in exchange for equity stake in these businesses. Angels ምን አይነት መሰሏችሁ? በቴሌቪዥን ላይ እንደውም አላያችሁም? የስራ ሐሳብ ይዘው ያሉ የስራ ፈጠራ ውድድር ላይ ሐሳብ ይዘው ያሉትን ባለሀብቶች ሄደው የልጆቹን እንትን ሼር ይገዛሉ. ይሄን ያህል ወስዳለው ይሄን ያህል ትላለው ይላሉ. እነሱ ባለሀብት ናቸው. they are wealthy ሀብታም ናቸው. entrepreneurs ደግሞ ሐሳብ ይዘዋል. ስለዚህ they are going to exchange. I mean they are going to make backup ማለት ነው, support ማለት. እነዚህ አንጀልስ ይባላሉ. ግልጽ ነው አይደል? አምስተኛው venture capital companies are private for-profit organizations that purchase equity position in young business. እነዚህ ደግሞ ትንሽ ከአንጀልስ የትናቸው የስትሪክትነታቸው ቤኔፊቱን የማየት ነገራቸው ትንሽ ላቅ ያለ ነው, ከፍ ያለ ነው. አምስቱን አየን. expecting high return ያው ያላልኳችሁ expecting high return and high growth potential opportunity ያንን ይጠብቃሉ venture capital companies. They provide startup capital, development funds or expansion funds. እስቲ ሁለቱን እናወዳድራቸው. angels and venture capitalists. These are individuals. Angels are individuals who wish to assist others in their business venture. ለመርዳት ግን እንደ በጎ አድራጎት ደግሞ አይደለም. በተቃራኒው venture capitalists ደግሞ finance small scale new technology and any risky idea. Funds are more specialized እና high expectation of equity አለ. በዚህ ጋር ደግሞ ስንመጣ usually found through networks እነዚህ angels በትስስር የሚገኙ ናቸው በአብዛኛው and they are often passive but realistic perspective እነዚህ መወዳደሪያዎች ናቸው I think በዛ መንገድ ብትወስዱት ጥሩ ነው ስለ ኢኩዊቲ ተነጋገርን ዴብት እንምጣ ይሄ መጀመሪያው ላይ ኢንተርናል ብለን ያወራነው ኢኩዊቲ ካፒታል ነው internal sources ወይም ኢኩዊቲ ካፒታል ሌላ ስሙ ሪስክ ካፒታል ስትሉ እንደነበረው ማለት ነው ኦኬ ሶርሶቹንም አምስቱን ሶርሶች ተነጋገርን what are the 5 source of equity capital ብትባሉ you should mention them ወደ external source need external source the source of financing አይደለም ነው financial source so external source የሚባሉ their debt capital borrowed capital or debt capital is external financing the business owner has borrowed and must repay with interest ይበደራል በኢንትረስት ይከፍላል commercial banks are by far the most frequently used source for short-term debt by the entrepreneur in this case commercial banks give short-term loans repayable ተመልሶ የሚከፈል within 1 year or less አንድ አመትና ከዛ በታች በሆነ ጊዜ ሚዲየም ደግሞ እንግዲህ ተመልከቱ ሾርት ተርም ሚዲየም ሎንግ ተርም ለነው አንድ አመትና ከዛ በታች ሲሆን ሾርት ተርም ሎን ሚዲየም ተርም ሎን maturing in about 1 year less than 5 years ከ5 year በላይ ደግሞ ሲሆን ሎንግ ተርም ሎን ይባላል ይሄ ብድር የራሱን የቻሉ ብድርን የመስጠት መንገዶች ይኖሩታል ኤክስተርናል ሶርስ ነው ያወራን ያለ ነው ልብ በሉ to secure a bank loan የባንክ ብድር ለማግኘት an entrepreneur typically will have to answer number of questions together with descriptive commentaries አንደኛ what do you plan to do with the money ምንድነው የምትሰሪበት when do you need it ገንዘቡ መቼ ነው የምትፈልጉት how much do you need ስንት ምን ያህል for how long do you need the money ለምን ያህል ጊዜ ነው ገንዘቡ የሚያስፈልገው how will you repay the ስለ ሊኩዊዲቲ ስናወራ ነበር አይደል እንዴት ነው መልሳችሁ የምትከፍሉት እነዚህ መሰረታዊ ነገሮች መመለስ ይጠይቃል ኮመርሻል ባንክ ኤክስተርናል ሶርስ ከምንላቸው ውስጥ የሚጠቀሱ ናቸው bank lending decision the small business owner needs to be aware of the criteria bankers use ምንድነው የሚጠቀሙት criteria መስፈርት in evaluating the creditworthiness of loan applications most bankers refer to the 5 C's of credit in making lending decision የማበደር ውሳኔ ለመወሰን 5 C's ያሉ capital capacity collateral character condition የብቻ ጻፏቸው 5 C's of credit in making lending decision of bankers capital a small business must have a stable capital base before the bank will grant a loan Agnes capacity the bank must be convinced with the firm's ability to meet its regular financial obligations and to repay the bank loan collateral ማስያዣ the collateral includes any asset the owner pledges to bank as a security for repayment of the loan character the banker must be satisfied with the owner's character ጠባይ ባህሪ The evaluation of a character frequently is based on intangible factors such as honesty, competence, willingness to negotiate with the bank. እንግዲህ perseverance ማየት ይፈልጋል በአንድ ቀን ብቻ ቼክ የሚደረግ አይደለም የተለያዩ ከዚህ በፊት ተበድረው ከፍሏቸው የሚያውቁ ነገሮች ካሉ በዛ ትራያንጉሌት ሊደረግ ይችላል ካራክተር condition the conditions surrounding a loan request also affect the owner's chance of receiving funds banks consider the factors related to the business operations such as potential growth in the market competition ተስፋ እንዴት ነው የማደግ ተስፋ location and loan purpose የቦታና የብድር ዓላማው the shape of the overall economy including interest rate levels inflation rate and demand for money in macro economy ጨምሮ እነኚህ conditions ያሉ 5 C's. The higher a small business scores on the 5 C's, the greater its chance will be of receiving a loan. In the Ethiopian context, collateral is very critical. ማስያዣ ቤታቸውን ያስይዛሉ አብዛኛው ምናምን collateral is critical. Trade credit ሁለተኛው ነው trade credit አሁን እዚህ ጋር ያየነው አንድ ብለን ኮመርሻል ባንክ ነው ያለው ሮማን ነምበር ሁለተኛው trade credit. This credit is given or it is credit given by suppliers who sell goods on account. This credit is reflected on entrepreneur's balance sheet as account payable, and in most cases it must be paid in 30 to 90 or more days. Equipment suppliers ይሄ ደግሞ ቁሳቁሶችን መስጠት. Most equipment vendors encourage business owners to purchase their equipment by offering to finance the purchase. Account receivable financing, account receivable ታሳቢ ተከፋይ የሚሆን የመከፈል ታሳቢነት. So it's a short-term financing that involves either a pledge of receivables as collateral for a loan. Credit unions, this is very common. የመጀመሪያ ሴቭ እንድታደርጉ ያደርጓችሁና በኋላ ደግሞ ያበድራሉ. Credit unions are non-profit cooperatives. ማህበራት ናቸው that promote saving and provide credit. Hey, credit unions. But credit unions do not make loans to justify anyone. To qualify for a loan, an entrepreneur must be a member. አባል መሆን አለበት. እየቆጠበ አባል ይሆናል። ከዛ በኋላ ነው በፐርሰንት የቆጠበው ፐርሰንት አስቦ ብድር የሚሰጠው እንጂ ዝም ብሎ አይሰጥም። ለማንኛውም ሰው አይሰጥም ነው የሚላችሁ እዚች ጋር ያለችው ከርሰሯ ታያችኋል። bonds. A bond is long-term contract in which the borrower agrees to make a principal and interest payments on a specific date to the holder of the bond. Bond ይሰጣል and then ዋናውንም ወለዱንም እንደሚከፍል ማሳያዎች እንደረጋሉ within a specified period. Bonds have always been a popular source of debt financing for large companies in the Western world. እኛ ጋር ለምሳሌ የህዳሴ ግድብ ቦንድ ይሸጣል። So it's just for financing the activities. በጣም አሪፍ ባንክ አወራን እየተነጋገርንባቸው ኢንተርናል ኤክስተርናል እና ሊዝ ሶስተኛ internal external and lease financing. In lease financing the owner of an asset gives another person the right to use that asset against periodical payments. Mark my word. በደንብ ያዙልኝ. lease financing. In lease financing, the owner of an asset gives another person, leasee ማለት ነው እሱ በኋላ leasee, the right to use that asset against periodical payments. የመጠቀም መብት ሰጠዋል in return. So it's one of the important source of medium and long term financing. እነዚህ ነገሮች በደንብ ያዙ። short term, medium, long term የሚሉ ነገሮችን በደንብ እየለያችሁ መሄድ አለባችሁ. time matters. It's one of the important source. Okay, medium and long term ብለናል. The owner of the asset, ቅድም ከላይ የጠቀስነው the owner of the asset ምን ተብሎ ይጠራል? ሊዘር ይባላል። ኦነሩ ወይም የአሴቱ ባለቤት ሊዘር ይባላል። አሴቱን የሚገለገለው የሚጠቀመው ሊዚ ይባላል። periodical payment መኖር አለበት አይደል? the periodical payment made by the leasee to the leaser is called lease rental. የሊዝ ኪራይ ይባላል። ስለዚህ መነሻ ቦታን እና ሌሎች ነገሮችን እነዚህና አሴቶችን የሌለው ሰው ሊዚ ሆኖ እንትን ሊል ይችላል ማለት ነው። ስራውን ሊጀምር ይችላል። under lease financing leasee is given the right to use the asset but the ownership lies with the leaser. ባለቤትነቱ ግን የማን ነው? የሊዘሩ ነው። የሊዚው የሚሰጠው ምንድነው? መጠቀም ተጠቃሚነት ነው። so at the end of the lease contract ጊዜው ማለት ነው the asset is returned to the leaser or an option is given to the leasee either to purchase the asset አሴቱን እንዲገዛው ወይም to renew the lease agreement ስምምነቱን እንዲያድስ። ምን የሊዝ አይነቶች አሉ? እሺ ቆሞ እንደዚህ ጋርና ምን አየን? ሊዝ ፋይናንሲንግ ላይ ጊዜን አየን። ሊዝ ረንታል፣ ሊዘር፣ ሊዚ፣ ታይም ማተርስ አይደል? ጊዜ periodical payment. Types. The classification is based on transfer of risk and rewards to the leasee. Accordingly, the period of the lease, the number of transacting parties, lease financing can be classified into two: finance and operating lease. Finance lease, operating lease. ጻፏቸው። ሊዝ በሉና በዚህ መልክ finance lease, operating lease. Finance lease is the lease where the leaser transfers substantially all the risk and rewards of ownership of assets to the leasee for the lease rental. lease rental ክፍያው እንደሆነ ታስታውሳላችሁ። ስለዚህ ሪስኮቹ እነዚህ ተግዳሮቶቹ የሚመጡ ችግሮች፣ መጥፎ ነገሮች፣ ሪስኮች፣ አደጋዎች እና በዛው ትርፉም ደግሞ he or she will enjoy the rewards. So in other words, it puts the leasee in the same condition as he or she would have been if he or she had purchased the asset. ልክ አሴቱን ቢገዛው ሊኖረው የሚችለውን እንትን ያህል ፖሰስ እንዲያደርግ ይረዳዋል ማለት ነው። እንደገና ፋይናንስ ሊዝን በሁለት ፌዝ ክፈሉልኝ። the first one is primary period. primary period የሚባለው non cancelable period ነው። non cancelable period cancel የማይደረግ. in this period the leaser recovers his total investment through lease rental. መለሳል። the primary period may last for indefinite period of time. ላልታወቀ ጊዜ ግልጽ ላልታወቀ ጊዜ ሊሄድ ይችላል፣ ሊቆይ ይችላል። the lease rental for the secondary period, primary ያለ secondary period is much smaller than primary period. true false ላይ much longer than ብትባሉ false ይሆናል። much smaller than primary period. From the above discussion, the following features can be derived from finance lease. The finance lease is a device that gives the leasee a right to use an asset. ቅድም ሊዘር፣ ሊዚ ብለን ስናወራ ነበር። ሊዝ ረንታል መብት ይሰጠዋል ነው የሚላችሁ እዚህ ጋር። the lease rental charged by the leaser, lease rental ክፍያው charged by the leaser during the primary period of the leasee is sufficient to recover his or her investment. የሚሸፍን ነው። በጣም ወሳኝ ነጥብ ነው። The lease rental ክፍያው for the secondary period is much smaller. ቅድም ምናልባት this is known as peppercorn rental. peppercorn rental ይባላል። Lease is responsible for the maintenance of assets. እነዚህ አሁን ሪስክ ምናምን አላለም እንደ ቅድም ሪስኮችን ሪተርን እንትላል ይወስዳል ብለን ነበር። ስለዚህ ለጥገና ነክ ነገሮች ላይ the lease is responsible. So no asset based risk and reward are taken by the leaser. Such type of the lease is non-cancelable. The leaser's investment is assured. Non-cancelable. ምንድነው ያየነው እስካሁን? በዚህ በእንትን ውስጥ ፋይናንሻል አይደል? ሁለት አይደል? ኦፕሬቲንግ እና ፋይናንሻል። ኦፕሬቲንግ ሊዝ እንመልከት። Here risks and rewards incidental to the ownership of the asset are not transferred by the leaser to the leasee. እንደቅድሙ አይደል? The term of such lease is much lesser than the economic life of the asset. የአሴቱ ኢኮኖሚክ ላይፍ አለ፣ ዲፕሪሺየሽን አለ፣ ኩዊት የሚያደርግበት ዲክላይን የሚያደርግበት እንትን ከዛ ያነሰ ነው። And thus the total investment of the leaser is not recovered through lease rental. lease rental እንደጋግማ during lease rental ምንድን ነበር? What is lease rental? A payment that the leasee pays for the leaser periodically during the primary period of lease, and the leaser usually provides advice. ምክር ይሰጣል ለሊዚው ማለት ነው። ምክር ይሰጣል። The leaser usually provides advice to the leaser for repair, ጥገና፣ እድሳት, maintenance and technical know-how of the leased asset, and that's why this type of lease is called service lease. service lease. peppercorn rental ቅድም ተመችታኛለች። service lease. Operating lease has the following features. ቅድም ስለ financial lease ስናወራ ነበር። lease financing እዚህ ውስጥ ደግሞ operating lease has the following features. operating lease has the following features. finance lease ያየናቸው features ነበሩት። finance lease operating lease ደግሞ operating lease has the following features. The lease term is much lower than the economic life of the asset. ከላይ ጠቅሰናል። The leaser has the right to terminate the leasee by giving a short notice. The leasee has the right to terminate the lease by giving short-term notice and no penalty is charged for that. የሊዘር መብት ነው። The leaser provides a technical know-how. እሱን ቅድም ጠቅሰን ነበር። ሊዝ ሰርቪስ ሊዝ ለምን እንደሚባል እንዳነሳ ነው። The leaser provides a technical know-how of the leased asset to the leasee. Risk and rewards incidental to the ownership of the asset are borne by the leaser, and leaser has to depend on leasing of an asset to different leasee for recovery of his or her investment. የሊዝ ፋይናንሲንግ አድቫንቴጅ ምንድን ነው? by the way ሊዝ ፋይናንሲንግ ፋይናንስ ሊዝ እና ኦፕሬቲንግ ሊዝ ብለን ነበር። ፋይናንስ ሊዝ ኦፕሬቲንግ ሊዝ አድቫንቴጁ ምንድን ነው? The leasing activity shows an increasing trend. Now, yeah, trend leasing appears to be a cost-effective alternative for using an asset. Hence, however, it has certain advantages as well as disadvantages. እነዚህ አድቫንቴጆችን ስናይ assured regular income ወጥነት ያለው ገቢን ያረጋግጣል። the leaser gets lease rental by leasing an asset during the period of lease, which is an assured and regular income. Preservation of ownership. In the case of finance, the leaser transfers all the risk and rewards incidental to the ownership. Now, the ownership lies with the leaser again. So, preservation ownership አለ ባለመብት ባለቤትነት benefit of tax ታክስ ተጠቃሚነት ይሄ እንግዲህ as ownership lies with the leaser, tax benefit is enjoyed by the leaser by way of depreciation in respect of leased asset. እንግዲህ እንትኑ ዲፕሪሼት ካደረገ ያንን ግምት ውስጥ ያስገባ አይነት ታክስ ፔይንግ ይኖራል። ሃይ ፕሮፊታቢሊቲ አለ ከፍተኛ ትርፋማነት፣ ሃይ ፖቴንሻል ኦፍ ግሮዝ የማደግ ከፍ ያለ የማደግ አቅም እነኚህ ነገሮች ዋና ዋናዎቹ ናቸው። ሪከቨሪ ኦፍ ኢንቨስትመንት ኢንቨስትመንቱ ምላሽ ቶሎ ሊዝ ረንታሉ ያንን ኢንቨስት ያደረጉበትን አሴቱን እንትን ያሉበትን የገነቡበትን የሰሩበትን ሪከቨሪ እንዲያደርግ የሚረዳ መሆኑ እነዚህ ዋና ዋና አድቫንቴጆች ናቸው። ዲስአድቫንቴጅስ ኦፍ ሊዝ ፋይናንሲንግ ስንመለከት let it be in the operating the finance lease or operating lease, leaser suffers from certain limitations. አንደኛ unprofitable in the case of inflation. ኢንፍሌሽን በሚኖር ጊዜ leaser gets fixed amount of lease rental አይደል አግሪመንት አለ። ለምሳሌ በየአመቱ የሚከፈለውን በቋሚነት መሃል ላይ እንትን ላይ ይችላል አግሪመንታቸው አለ። so they cannot increase ኢንፍሌሽን ስለተፈጠረ ማክሮ ኢኮኖሚው ላይ ሊጨምር no way. double taxation ሁለት ጊዜ ታክስ ሊደረግ ይችላል። ሴልስ ታክስ አንድ ጊዜ መጀመሪያ ላይ purchase of asset ላይ እንትላል፣ ሁለተኛ ላይ ደግሞ at the time of leasing the asset ታክስ ይደረጋል። ሁለት ጊዜ ታክስ double taxation. greater chance of damage of the asset አሴቱ ዳሜጅ የመሆን የመበላሸት ነገር ሃይ ይሆናል። ምክንያቱም የሊዚ uses the asset carelessly በግዴለሽነት ምናምን የሚጠቀመው ከሆነ and there is a great chance that asset cannot be usable after the expiry of primary period of lease. እነዚህ lease financing ውስጥ ያየናቸው ነጥቦች ናቸው። internal source equity capital, external source debt capital ባንኮችንም ስናይ ነበረ remember the 5 C's። ከዛ ሶስተኛ ላይ lease financing፣ አራተኛ ቶፒካችን traditional financing in Ethiopia ምን ይመስላል። እንግዲህ Ethiopia has one of the least developed formal financial sector በጣም ዝቅተኛ የሆነ እንትን ነው ያለው። however it possesses the rich tradition in indigenous ሀገር በቀል የሆኑ በጣም ጥሩ የሚባሉ ልማዶች community based groups such as savings and credit associations and insurance like societies እንግዲህ እነዚህ የማህበረሰብ እሴቶች ናቸው በጎ የሆኑ ነገሮች እንዲመጡ የሚረዱ ናቸው ተብሎ የሚታመኑ these Equib and Edir groups provide source of credit, insurance ብድርና መድን outside the formal sector ያ ለእንግዚ የሆነ እንትን ሊሄድ የነበረውን በዛው ማኔጅ እንዲደረግ so much rooted in Ethiopian society ይሄ ማህበረሰባዊ ሴት ነው። so the contributions of these groups especially Equib to economic growth is difficult to quantify but can be assumed to play an important role. Equib እንዲያረኩ የመቆጠቢያ መንገድም ነው። በዛ ላይ ደግሞ ገንዘብ ተሰብስቦም የሚመጣ ስለሆነ በቆብ የገዛው ቤት ነው፣ በቆብ የገዛው መኪና ነው፣ በቆብ እንደ ትልቅ ነገሮችን traditional means of saving ነው ግን and it exists completely outside the formal financial system. It's a form of saving የቁጠባ አይነት ነው ብያቸዋለሁ ቅድም። people voluntarily join a group and make a mandatory contribution. ወዶ ይገባሉ ተገደይ ይከፍላሉ። እንደየጊዜው በየሳምንቱ ሊሆን ይችላል፣ በወር ሊሆን ይችላል። ብዙ የተለመደው በየሳምንቱ ነው። so the pot ይጣው is distributed on a rotating የክፍያው basis determined by drawing at the beginning of the እቁብ መጀመሪያ ሰብሳቢ አይደለም የሚሆን amounts contributed vary according to the ability of the participants የሚዋጣው የሚሰበሰበው የእቁብ መጠን እንደየ ተሳታፊዎቹ የእቁብ መጀመሪያ ደረጃዎች ወጥቶለታል። እቁብ is widespread especially in urban areas በከተማ አካባቢ የተለመደ ነው። it offers a saving mechanism for both urban and rural dwellers ከተማና ገጠር ነዋሪዎች who have no access to a traditional bank within reasonable distance from their dwelling በመኖሪያ አካባቢያቸው ላይ በቅርበት ኮንቬንሽናል የሆነ የባንክ ሰርቪስ ማግኘት ማይችሉ ከሆነ ይሄ የተሻለ ዘዴ ሆኖ እናገኘዋለን ማለት ነው። ኢትዮጵያ has one of the lowest bank penetration rates in the world። ይሄ ቀድምም ስለ ፋይናንስ እናወራ አንስተን ነበር with less than one bank branch for every 100,000 residents. imagine ለአንድ 100,000 ነዋሪ አንድ ብራንች እና በየሰፈሩ ወረዳዎች ምናምን so እቁብ has advantage over the formal finance system for such people። እቁብ በጣም አድቫንቴጅ የሆነ flexibility high ነው። availability flexibility Ethiopian banks have been paying negative real interest rate for more than 25 years. Additionally, the social and communal aspects of Equib give participants a confidence that they may not have in Ethiopia's shaky financial system. Most formal banks, formally owned conventional banks, require high level of collateral for loans. ማስያዣው የብድር ለማግኘት የሚጠየቀው ማስያዣ በጣም which discourage certain borrowers and does not allow for borrowing for financial needs. In the absence of loans from formal banks, Ethiopia also turned to loan shark አራጣ በዳሪ በጣም ኃይለኛ እኮ እንትን ነው እና ፋይናንሻል ሲስተሙንም weird በሆነ መንገድ ይወደዋል actually who charge as much as 120% per year interest በጣም አደገኛ የሆነ ሎን ሻርክ እቁብ ካምቤ ድራይቨር የጨነቀው ያው ይበደራል አርጀንት በሆነ ባራጣ እቁብ ካምቤ a driver for economic growth and development እና ለኢኮኖሚክ ዴቨሎፕመንት አስተዋጽኦ ከሚያደርጉ ነገሮች መካከል የምንጠቅሰው ነው። study by ተገኘ ገብረ እግዚአብሔር ሙላት ደመቀ IDR ውስጥ examine small business owners in rural towns እና the study found that the group surveyed most frequently used their payout for expanding their business ለማስፋፊያነት ይሄ የሪሰርች ሊትሬቸር ላይ የተወሰደ ነው ሞጁላችሁም ላይ ስላለ at higher levels a prominent local businessman described Equibs in Addis Ababa with payouts in excess of 15 million over $500,000. They started that much of the construction boom in Addis is being financed with Equib rather than through the formal banking system ቀደም ይህን የሰራሁት በእቁብ ነው ምናምን ይላሉ እንዳልኳችሁ ማለት ነው። ስለዚህ ሴንትራል ባንክ ገቨርነር ገዢው ሴንትራል ባንክ ገቨርነር has told researchers that every 5% of the country's total loan portfolio is in construction loans. Equib is filling a vital role in providing capital for physical infrastructure, while Equib is a means of saving and substituting for formal banking credit. Edir ይሄ burial society ቀብር traditional form of insurance አሁን እድሮች the እድር contributions are used to pay for expenses in the event of death for family members ያንን የፈንራል ፕሮሰስን ያስኬዳል። እድር እንደዛ ብቻ አይደለም፣ ሌሎችንም ስራዎች ይሰራል በዛው። ግን የመረዳጃ እንትን ነው ዋና ዓላማው በአብዛኛው። እድር is the only means other than personal savings to pay these days related expenses. እድር contributions are small compared to እቁብ usually ከ10 እስከ 25 ብር በወር። some እድርስ provide additional coverage ቅድም እንዳልኳችሁ ሰው ሲታመም የቤት መፍረስና ሌላ የእንስሳት ለምሳሌ ንብረት መጥፋት ያንን ሲከሰት they have their role. Ethiopia's formal financial system is extremely underdeveloped and most part confined to cities and larger towns. So the traditional systems of Equib and Edir are perhaps century old. እስካሁንም ደግሞ ተጽዕኖ እየፈጠሩ ነው። Based on both the formal studies and anecdotal information, Equib provides an alternative saving and loan structure rooted in tradition. So it's based on practicality and availability. በተፈጻሚነታቸውና በቅርብ በመገኘታቸው they act as engines for a portion of Ethiopia's economic growth. engine ሆነው ያገለግላሉ። Ethiopian traditional source አየን። Here we are for the crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is a method of raising capital through the collective effort of friends, family, customers, investors, or even from general public. Crowd ስብስብ ማለት ነው። This approach taps into collective effort for a large pool of individuals, primarily online via social media, በማህበራዊ ድረገጽ and crowdfunding platforms and leverage their network for greater reach and exposure. How is crowdfunding? Especially it's the opposite of the mainstream approach to business finance. የተለመደው አይነት and traditionally if you want to raise capital to start a new business you would need to pack up your business plan, እቅድ እናወጣለን፣ market research, prototype እናደርጋለን, and then shop your idea around to a limited pool ለተወሰነ ምንጭ የተወሰነ የገንዘብ ምንጭ እናቀርባለን። ያንን wealthy individuals ቅድም ያልናቸው እነዚህ angels or institutions. These funding sources include banks, angel investors, and venture capital firms, really limiting their options to few key players and actors. You can think of this fundraising approach as a funnel with you and your funnel አሁን እንደዚህ እንትን ተደርጎ you may just look but በአንደኛው side closed ከሆነ with you and your pitch at the wide end and your audience of investors at the close end በሌላው መንገድ that's so tough and hence fail to point that funnel at the right investor or firm at the right time, and that's your time and money lost. In crowdfunding platforms, on the other hand, turn the funnels on end, opening it on end. It turns that funnels on end by giving you a single platform to build, showcase, and share your pitch resources. This approach dramatically streamlines traditional model. Traditionally, you would spend months through your personal network and vetting potential investors. Spending your own time and money to get in front of them. With crowdfunding, it's much easier for you to get your opportunity in front of other interested parties, ፍላጎቱ ያላቸው, and give them more ways to help grow your business. So from investing thousands in exchange for equity to contributing 500 in exchange for the first run product or other reward. እና እነኚህ ቤኔፊቶችን ብንመለከት there are a number of benefits of crowdfunding over traditional methods. አንደኛ በቀላሉ ሊደረስ የሚችል ነው. You have access to thousands of accredited investors who can see, interact and share your fundraising campaign. አማላይ መሆን አለበት. Presentation. By creating a crowdfund campaign, you go through the invaluable process of looking at your business from the top level, its history, traction, offerings, addressable market, value proposition, and more, and boiling it down to a polished, easily digestible package. PR and marketing, promotion and marketing. You can share and promote your campaigns through social media, email letters, and other online market tactics. Validation of concepts. በቀላሉ ሀሳቦች ይመጣሉ and ትቀበላላችሁ. Presenting your concept or business to the masses afford an excellent opportunity to validate and refine your offerings. ማሻሻያዎች. As potential investors begin to express interest and ask questions, you will quickly see if there is something missing that would make them more likely to buy it. And then you can reshuffle, amendment ማድረግ. One of the best things, efficiency, ብቃት, about online crowdfunding is its ability to centralize and streamline your fundraising efforts. By building a single comprehensive profile to all your prospects and potential investors, you eliminate the need to pursue each of them individually. So instead of duplicating efforts by printing documents here, you can present everything online in much more accessible format, leaving you with more time to run your business instead of fundraising. ያ ሁኔታዎችን ድል ይሰጣል። እነኛ ናቸው ዋናዎቹ ጥቅሞች። 5 ጥቅሞችን አይተናል። Types of crowdfunding. Just like there are many different kinds of capital round raises for businesses in all stages of growth, there are a variety of crowdfunding types. Your choice selection of type of crowdfund method depends on the type of product or service you offer. ምን አይነት ምርትና አገልግሎት ነው ያቀረባችሁት? Your goals for growth. ተስፋው ቪዥኑ ምን ይመስላል? 3 primary types of crowdfunding. ወሳኝ: donation based, reward based, equity crowdfunding. Equity crowdfunding. Equity based. That's equity based. donation-based crowdfunding. You can think of any crowdfunding campaign in which there is no financial return to the investors, contributors as a donation-based crowdfunding. There is no financial return. You can think of any crowdfunding campaign which there is no financial return to the investors, contributors as donation-based crowdfunding. Its initiative includes fundraising for disaster relief. እነዚህ አሁን አደጋ ሲገጥም ለአደጋ ጊዜ በጎ አድራጎት አትራፊ ያልሆኑ የሕክምና እቃዎች አደጋዎች ሲፈጠሩ የተለያዩ ሰው ሰራሽ መሆኑ ተፈጥሮ አደጋዎች ለነኛ ገንዘብ ፋይናንስ እንትን ልንል እንችላለን። ምን ላይ ተጠብቀው ሳይሆን የሚሰጡን ያ ለዛ ማገገሚያ መርጃ መንገዱን ያገለግላል። Reward based ደግሞ it involves individuals contributing to your business in exchange for a reward, typically a form of product or service your company offers. So even though this method offers backers ደጋፊዎችን reward እንዲያገኙ የሚያደርግ ቢሆንም it's still considered as a subset of donation based. ለምን there is no financial or equity return. Equity based crowdfunding, unlike the donation based and reward based, ይሄ ግን contributors become part owners of your company. like share እንደያዙት ማለት ነው። trading capital for equity shares. As equity owners, your contributors receive a financial return on their investment and ultimately receive a share of the profits in the form of dividend እና ምላሽ ያገኛሉ። በዛ መንገድ ትርፍ ለማግኘት ጥረት ያደርጋሉ ማለት ነው። ኦኬ ይሄ ነው። so mention the three types of crowdfunding ብላችሁስ ቅድም አንስተናል። ወደ መጨረሻ ነጥቦቻችን እንንቀሳቀስ። እነሱን እንደ ኤክሰርሳይዝ እንድታረጉበት ነው። ስድስተኛ ማይክሮፋይናንስ ነው የነጥባችን። Microfinance refers to financial services such as loans, savings, insurance and fund transfers to small businesses and individuals who lack access to banking services with high collateral requirements. ኮላተራሉ ሲያስቸግራቸው ሲበዛ እነዚህ የፋይናንሻል ሰርቪስ የሚሰጡ ማይክሮፋይናንስስ ብድር፣ ቁጠባ፣ መድን እና የተለያዩ ፈንድ ትራንስፈር የማድረግ ለስሞል ቢዝነስ አስተዋጽኦ አላቸው። መሐመድ ዩኑስ is a pioneer of modern microfinance. በተለይ ትንንሽ ብድሮችን በመስጠት which he funded himself to women in Bangladesh ባምቡ ስራ ላይ ያሉ እና they had previously replied on loans with unfair and predatory terms of purchase. He discovered these very tiny loans and could make a disproportionate difference to poor ድህነት ውስጥ ላሉ and given the chance they would pay them back, creating a viable business model. So he would go on Grameen Bank in 1983 now he won the Nobel Prize በ2006 in his invention of microfinance. Microfinance ጥቅማቸው ምንድነው ሲባል important because it provides access to capital to the financially underserved ላልተጠቀሙ ትልቅ ሆኑ microfinance እነኛን ያግዛል. It helps them invest in their businesses, የራሳቸው ሀብት ላይ ኢንቨስት እንዲያደርጉ and invest in themselves. It also serve those in developing world as important source. In fact, women are major borrowers. Microfinance barometer ጥናት እንደሚያመለክተው ሴቶች the microfinance enterprise, institution is also growing rapidly. በጣም በፍጥነት እያደገ ያለ ነው በተለያዩ ሀገራት ውስጥ። እነኛ ሊትሬቸሮች የሚያመለክቱት ይሄንን ነው። እኛ ሀገር ምን አይነት ነገሮች አሉ? we'll come to that later. While microfinance is aimed at ending poverty, አላማው ድህነትን መቀነስ ስራ አጥነትን መቀነስ የእርን ማድረግ ወይም የገቢ ማግኘት ድልን ከፍ ማድረግ እና aid the financially marginalized. Some experts say it may not work. አንዳንዶች ከዚህ በተቃራኒ አይሰራም ብለው አርጎ ያረጋሉ። አንዳንዶች ደግሞ ድህነትን ማይክሮፋይናንስ ድህነትን አባብሷል ብለው የሚከራከሩም አሉ። ዞ አርጉመንታቲቭ ቢሆንም ግን የመኖሩ ሁኔታ ያልመጣቸው አስተዋጽኦች አሉ። Either way, microfinance is an important topic in the financial realm. And if done correctly, በደንብ ከተሰራ could be powerful tool for many. ለብዙዎች ጥሩ አስተዋጽኦ የሚያደርግ ይሆናል። የኢትዮጵያ ውስጥ ያለው የማይክሮፋይናንስ ተሞክሮን ስናይ microfinance in Ethiopia has its origin in traditional methods used to accumulate savings and access credit by people who lacked access to formal finance institutions. Ethiopia has also more 38 microfinance institutions በ2018 በተለይ በተደረገ so the history of formal establishment of Ethiopia microfinance institution is limited about less than 20 years. The first group the first groups of few microfinance institutions were established in early 1997 following the issuance of proclamation. ይሄ አዋጅ ቁጥር 40 ዝባር 1996 ላይ በወጣው አዋጅ ተከትሎ የ1997ቶች መጀመሪያ ላይ ነው በአብዛኛው የመጀመሪያዎቹ ግሩፖች ብሉም ያደረጉት። The objective of microfinance is basically poverty alleviation through provision of sustainable financial services to the poor. ድህነትን መቀነስ ነው። ስለዚህ microfinance institution is growing in terms of number and size. አሁን በቁጥርም በመጠንም እያደገ ነው። The microfinance institutions in Ethiopia are serving the productive poor people mainly with አሁን አምራች ሆነው ግን ድህነት ላይ ያለውን በመቆጠብ በማበደር የገንዘብ ዝውውር በማድረግ ማይክሮፋይናንስ እነዚህ እንትናል። ሌላው ግን አሁን በጣም በኮርፖሬት መልክ እየተቋቋሙ ያሉ አሉ። አሁን እነዚህ በየክልሉ ተቋቁሞ የነበሩ ናቸው። ነገር ግን በጥቃቅንና አነስተኛ መንገድ ብቻ ሳይሆን በማይክሮፋይናንስ ብቻ ሳይሆን በአነስተኛ ፋይናንስ ብቻ ሳይሆን አሁን የተለያዩ በተቋም መልክ እየመጡ ያሉ financial institutions እንዳሉ እንረዳለን። Types of activities carried out by Ethiopian microfinance institutions አንደኛ በአዋጅ እንደተገለጸው የሚከተሉትን ተግባራት ያከናውናሉ። በፍቃደኝነት ይቆጥባ ማነው voluntary and compulsory savings ፈቃደኝነትና ግዳጅ እንትኖችም ያሉት ብድር ይካሄዳል፣ ይቆጥባሉ፣ ይበደራሉ። Extending credit to rural and urban farmers ይሄ ለገጠርና ከተማ አርሶ አደሮች ብድርን ማመቻቸት። Drawing and accepting drafts payable with an Ethiopian microfinance business as prescribed by National Bank of Ethiopia. Purchasing some income generating financial instruments, ለምሳሌ treasury bill and other income generating activities ለምሳሌ ማሽኖች እነዚህ እንደ መግዣነት እንዲውሉ ብድር ያመቻቻል ያቀርባል። Acquiring, maintaining and transferring any movable and immovable property including premises for carrying out its business እንግዲህ የመስሪያ ቦታዎች ሁኔታዎች። Supporting income generating projects እነኛን የገቢ ምንጭ ፕሮጀክቶችን መደገፍ ገጠርና ከተማ። Rendering managerial, marketing, technical and administrative advice ምክር ይሰጣል ለደንበኞች for customers and managing funds for micro and small scale businesses providing many transfer services, financial services, and the like. These are very important things. And have a look at these review questions. እነኝን review questions እዩዋቸው አንብቧቸው. You may just screenshot አድርጋችሁ ይዛችሁ እንትን በትሏቸው ጥሩ ነው። በዚህ ጨርሰናል። የመጨረሻው ቻፕተራችንን በቅርብ ጊዜ ፎርወርድ አደርግላችኋለሁ። አፕሎድ ይደረጋል። ጥያቄዎችን እንሰራለን። ዋና ነጥቦቻችሁን ማስታወሻ ላይ የያዛችሁ ያልገባችሁን ነገሮች እዛ ውስጥ ቴክስት ብታደርጉ ሪስፖንድ አደርግላችኋለሁ። አመሰግናለሁ። መልካም ቀን። Thank you.